Get right to it. We were talking a little earlier with Chris Wallace about the brand new polls, the brand new Fox News polls set to be out at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Well, here they are, and look what they reveal about Iowa.
Senator Ted Cruz coming in at 28%, topping Donald Trump, who's at 26%. Remember, this is, though, within the margin of error.
So it's a statistical tie, in effect, between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump in the first-in-the-nation voting state of Iowa, but it is still a change from what we've seen for these past few months where Trump has been in first place. What does this all mean? We want to bring in Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, author of the fantastic new novel Duplicity. He joins us from Washington this morning. Mr. Speaker, it's good to have you. What does this mean? Is this the beginning of a Ted Cruz trend?
Well, I think, look, it's got to be tremendous news for Ted. He is going to clearly increase his fundraising dramatically. People will pay more attention to his speeches and his interviews. They've done a brilliant job of networking Iowa. They've gotten all of the key religious conservative leaders to endorse him. They have very methodically worked Iowa, and they had a strategy of being patient, and as Dr. Carson failed to match on national security issues, they just quietly pulled away various people who liked Carson a lot, but were more likely to go to Cruz than to either Rubio or to Trump. So you got to give Ted Cruz a lot of credit. This is a very successful campaign so far on his part. Whether it's sustainable or not, we'll find out, because, of course, now Ted Cruz is going to get a lot more scrutiny, and people are going to question his positions a lot more intensely.
You know Iowa very well, obviously, and you know the retail politics and how well that plays to Iowa voters going door to door in Iowa. Do you think that this is as a result of that? You mentioned it briefly. Ted Cruz spending all those time in all of those different counties, maybe Donald Trump not so much. Does that play into this?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, because Iowa's a caucus state, so what matters is who shows up and stays all evening, because Iowa has done this now year after year, so the Iowans are really, both Iowans and New Hampshireites are remarkably good at checking out presidential candidates, because they get to do a lot. I'm going to be out there next Thursday for Linda Upmeyer, who is about to become the first woman Speaker of the House in Iowa, and so I'm looking forward to spending Thursday and Friday talking to folks on the ground and seeing what they think. But I think you've got to say this is a very nice boost for Ted Cruz. It's got to jar Donald Trump a little bit. He's going to have to think about what's his comeback. And frankly, it means that Dr. Carson has got to really think about how he is going to recover on the national security front.
What does this mean at the bottom of the ticket right now? I mean, we see these new polls. What do you think? I mean, how much longer can some of these guys sustain it?
Well, they can sustain it a long time out of stubbornness, and I certainly was part of that in 2012. But you know, people say to me occasionally, "Don't you wish you were running?" I look at it and think, I have no idea what I would do. When you look at the folks who are basically much below where Rubio is, you start saying, how are they going to climb? Where are they going to get their votes? How are they going to get past the guys ahead of them? And as you know, the news media has a limited capacity to cover people. So if Trump takes up 50 or 60% of the energy just because of his ability to tweet and to be outrageous, and now you got Cruz taking up another 20 or 30%, there is not much oxygen left at the bottom of the ticket right now for people to get any attention.
Well, it seems to be working. If you look at this next poll, it's on national security, and it suggests that Republicans as a group are rethinking their approach. So you have Cruz and Trump, total of 50%, asked who's most effective on that question. Rubio and Bush, who kind of represent a continuation of the Republican Party's foreign policy positions, together have less than 30. Does that, rather have less than 20, 19 points, 11 and 8. Does that suggest to you that Republican voters are rethinking what works abroad?
I think when you wake up, as we did this morning, and you hear that there have been 3 malls that had bomb scares yesterday, you want to know what's going to be done about national safety. And I think it's important to understand this. This isn't about overseas. This is about people who look at California, and now we're learning that our government is so incompetent. It didn't even look at Facebook before giving this woman a visa to come to the United States. And on Facebook, she was saying, "I love jihad, I want to help kill people." And our government was too incompetent to even use Facebook. I mean, I think people want really dramatic change. Cruz and Trump are the 2 most change-oriented candidates in the race, and you see the result.
All right, and to your point, we've talked this week about ISIS having a passport-making machine, and want to talk a little bit more about Tashfeen Malik, who you mentioned had posted about jihad on social media and somehow was still able to pass 3 background checks without red flags going up, that according to the New York Times. And also, Speaker Gingrich, CBS is reporting that 5 different agencies checked her as well. What does that say about the competency of these agencies and where we stand?
Well, I keep trying to tell people that you cannot overstate the decay of the bureaucratic system in the United States. You cannot overstate how obsolete it is, whether it's the Veterans Administration or it's the Department of Homeland Security or it's the consular part of the State Department. We have a system that no longer works. And one of the reasons that both Trump and Cruz are gaining ground is they are the 2 people who look like they will kick in the door and force radical change. And the average American looks at this level of incompetence and says, I don't just want you to manage it better. I want you to dramatically change it. And frankly, I have no confidence, zero, that the United States government today is capable of dealing with screening people who are coming from countries where we have limited knowledge. And remember, the 4 of the people in the Paris killings were French citizens who can enter the U.S. without a visa. So this is a very dangerous world we now live in.
But a little less dangerous, according to the president, because now we have what looks like the beginnings of a global warming treaty. So here's my question to you. A record number, more Americans are out of work than any time in generations. Does the average person, even the average Democrat, care about this agreement, or is it solely for the benefit of Laurie David and the national NRDC and CAP and groups like that?
Look, if you ask them, they care about it, but if you actually ask what they care about in their life, it doesn't come up very high. Let me offer you one example of a simple alternative. A lot of this is driven by 3 or 4 very small island nations in the South Pacific who are worried about rising sea levels. The Dutch solved rising sea levels around 1200. They did it by building dikes. I would much rather that we have a program to send Dutch engineers to these 4 islands or these 3 islands, rather than try to change the entire planet in order to make them feel better. And I just think that this whole approach, everybody flies into Paris. Think of what they do. All of these upper-class diplomats fly into Paris on nice airplanes, stay at nice hotels, go to nice restaurants, and write up a treaty which, by the way, has 0 enforcement. It resembles the Iranian agreement. It has no enforcement provisions. They then hold a big press conference to say, God, aren't we brilliant, and hasn't this been a great week in Paris? And they go home, and we're all supposed to feel really happy about it.
Well, you are a prolific author. I don't know how you find the time. The new book is out, Duplicity. It's out in stores now. Mr. Speaker, always great seeing you here on the show.
Good
Thanks
to see
so
you.
much.